You're listening to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and on today's episode, we have UFC Vegas 35, Barboza versus Chikadze, preview, predictions, and analysis. A main event for the ages between two of the most decorated strikers in the UFC goes down, as well as a bout between a former lightweight title challenger going back up to 170 pounds, trying to make waves in that division against a dangerous contender in D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. So without any further ado, let's get this started and step into the ring. All right. Get your popcorn, your drinks, and your notepads ready because we are about to give you the best UFC Vegas 35 predictions on the internet. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the one doing it. I'm saying it because I know for a fact nobody is as detailed in the analysis and breakdown of fights as me. So let's get this started and let's get it going. Obviously, guys, UFC Vegas 35 takes place from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'll touch really quick on last weekend's fights. Obviously, overall on the predictions for the card, I went 5-1. The only one I got wrong was Pantoja versus Royvall. So I thought it was going to go our way. You know, I thought that Pantoja was gassing. He was getting caught a lot more on the feet. It looked like he was on his way out. Royvall slipped up, gave up his back. Pantoja, like I said, you can't give up your back against Alexandre Pantoja. Took the back, got the rear naked choke, and got the submission. Other than that, I mean, we pretty much got everything right on the card. A big underdog in Parker Porter. We called that one. Obviously, Jared Cannonier over Kelvin Gastelum. I was a little bit surprised with how many people had picked Kelvin to win that fight, but I don't think it was a surprise to anybody how good Cannonier looked there. He dropped Kelvin with a beautiful, shifting or a lateral moving right hook. Just caught him on the chin. His hands dropped. I can't believe he didn't go out, but Kelvin's got one of the best chins in the sport. Overall, with predictions, I'll go over who I got correct. So I believe I didn't pick the Trevin Jones and Karamanov fight, but I got Pantoja versus Royvall. I got wrong. I got Pichel over Hubbard via decision. I got Parker Porter via decision. I got Marco Madsen winning against Clay Guida, and I had Jared Cannonier winning over Kelvin Gastelum. On the prelims, I don't think I did any predictions. Oh, yes, I did. I had Ramiz Brahimaj over Sasha Palatnikov via first round submission. Or I think I called second round, so a little off on the timing there. But yeah, overall 5-1. The only fight we got incorrect was Royvall versus Pantoja, and then the Roosevelt Roberts versus Ignacio Bahamondes. That fight really impressed me, to be honest. He landed, he was kind of getting pieced up in that first round with the jab of Roosevelt Roberts. You know, Roberts is a good boxer. He's really long and lanky for that 155-pound division. And you saw that here early on against Ignacio. He was popping him with the jab. He was just keeping him at range. And every time Ignacio would try to come in, he couldn't close that range and couldn't close that distance. And was just constantly getting popped. Just pop, pop, pop. Every time he was coming in, getting popped with the jab, eventually setting up the 1-2, the hook behind it. But obviously you saw what happened. Ignacio bit down on his mouthpiece. He found a way to get inside, close the distance with his head movement, land some good combos and good kicks on the feet. And he was landing some good low kicks and some good spinning kicks to the body. And then he saw Roosevelt circling. He spun, landed a spinning wheel kick, and knocked Roosevelt Roberts the fuck out. Excuse my language, but man, that's one of the best knockouts I've ever seen. Ignacio is a guy from Chicago, Illinois, out by me. So got to rep the Chicago guys, but I didn't think he was going to be able to get a victory over Roberts. And I didn't think he would be able to get it done the way that he did. Circling Roberts towards that spinning wheel kick, cutting him off, and bop, just smacking him right across the face with that heel. And once he hit that kick, I mean, it was over. That's one of the best knockouts I've ever seen, and probably one of the best knockouts of the year. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where Ignacio goes from here because, you know, Roberts is not a veteran in this division, but he has some good wins, and he has fought some good guys like Jim Miller and a couple other guys in the lightweight division. So Roberts is not an easy test for anybody. And Bahamondes just, you know, passed the test with flying colors. So let's move on to the predictions that we're here for today, which is the UFC Vegas 35, Barboza versus Chikadze predictions. This event is going to take place tomorrow at 9 p.m. Central Time at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada on ESPN. Not ESPN Plus, even though you can catch it on there as well. It is going to be on the actual ESPN channel. So, if you have access to that, definitely check out this card, because not only is the main event going to be one of the best striking matches you'll ever see in the UFC, one of the best and most technical striking matchups in MMA is going to go down tomorrow night at the UFC Apex. And then you've obviously got the tough finale, the Ultimate Fighter finale for the middleweights and bantamweights, so 185 pounds and 135 pounds. It was originally supposed to be Brian Battle versus, why can I not think of this guy's name? Tresean Gore. But Gore got injured and had to pull out, so Gilbert Urbina stepped in to take his place after Urbina was actually knocked out by Tresean Gore to get to that finale. Caught with a beautiful left hook stepping in after he tried to close the range. Bop! Right over the top, dropped him, and finished him. Gore has some really, really solid power, and Battle versus Gore was going to be a great matchup for this middleweight Ultimate Fighter finale, but obviously things happen and Urbina gets a second chance coming into this fight. They're pretty even on the records, but Urbina has fought against Sean Brady, who's an undefeated mixed martial artist in the UFC, who was supposed to fight on this card against Kevin Lee, but now Kevin Lee gets the really, really solid, could technically be undefeated ranked contender in the 170-pound division in Daniel D. Rodriguez. So Rodriguez versus Kevin Lee, that, besides the main event, is my most look forward to fight on the card. I think that's a lot of people's most look forward to fight, and definitely one that people are really excited to see. Not only can Kevin Lee come back and look good at 170 pounds when he was formerly a top contender at 155 pounds, facing the likes of Edson Barboza, Ally Quinta, Tony Ferguson, faced RDA at 170 pounds. He's fought the best of the best at 155 pounds, and a former top contender in Rafael Dos Anjos at 170 pounds. And it's going to be exciting to see Kevin Lee, the Motown Phenom, step back into the cage, and he definitely does not have an easy task ahead of him in D-Rod Rodriguez. So let's get it started, and we're going to start on the prelims. I like to usually give you one or two fights from the preliminary card before we step into the ring on the main card. So we're going to start off with the main event of the prelims in the middleweight division. You've got a battle between Alessio Manzo Di Chirico going up against Abdul Razak El Hassan. This is a great matchup at 185 pounds. Really, really solid matchmaking here. It was originally supposed to be Abdul Razak El Hassan versus somebody else, but whoever his original opponent was supposed to be had gotten injured or had to pull out of the fight, so Alessio stepped in. I believe Alessio Di Chirico was supposed to fight somebody else on this card as well, and their fight fell out. So we get the battle between two fighters who were supposed to fight somebody else, and they were healthy, so they step in and fight each other. I can't think of who Di Chirico was supposed to fight, because I'm pretty sure he was supposed to fight Roman Dolidze on June 5th. He was supposed to fight, this was it, Aliaskab Kazirov, who I believe was supposed to make his UFC debut against Kyle Dawkins, and that fight fell out. And they tried to make that fight again. It fell out again. Now Kazirov was going to come in and fight Di Chirico, but he obviously couldn't make it here. I think it was due to visa issues with the whole COVID spiking again. But now we get Di Chirico versus Abdul Razak El Hassan, and what a great matchup here at 185 pounds. Abdul Razak El Hassan is kind of on, in a must-win situation. He came into the UFC a while ago, I believe back in 2018, and was on a bit of a hot streak. He came in a bunch of first-round KOs. I believe he lost his first fight in the UFC. Let me see. Here we go. So if we go back to 2016, okay, so that's when he debuted in the UFC, was 2016. He had a first-round knockout over Charlie Ward. Going into 2017, he had a first-round KO over Sabah Homasi, and then he lost a decision to Omari Akhmadov, who, as you can see later on in his career, he was one of the top-ranked guys at 170 pounds. So or 185 pounds, and this was, I believe, at 170 pounds. So he had that decision loss to Omari, and then after that is when he knocked out Sabah Homasi at UFC 218 in the first round. They ended up rematching because there was some controversy in how that fight played out. He got another first-round KO with a beautiful uppercut at UFC 220 against Sabah Homasi, and then he faced off against Nico Price and got another first-round knockout in 43 seconds. I mean, if Abdul Razak Alhassan comes in and connects on your chin, he can put just about any man at 170 pounds to bed. I mean, he can put you to sleep. He lands on your chin. He can definitely 100% knock you out. But, later on in his career, and as his career has gone on, he's been in a little bit of a rut here. I mean, he lost to Munir Lazez via decision, and then he got knocked out by Chaos Williams in 30 seconds in the first round, which is something nobody saw coming. Then he came back against Jacob Malkoun, who in his UFC debut got matched up against Phil Hawes. I believe that was at UFC 254, and he got knocked out in the first round. So it seemed like it was going to be a favorable matchup for Abdul Razak Alhassan, and it just didn't work out for him. He got out-wrestled, out-grappled, controlled on the ground, and just once you get Alhassan down to the ground, if you can control the pace and control your top pressure and the top control, the longer the fight goes, he doesn't have that same knockout power, and his cardio is definitely not the best. So the thing with Alessio Di Chirico is he's a good striker. He's long, he's rangy. He came in and knocked out who was going to be, or was being lined up to be, one of the UFC's cash cows in Joaquin Buckley. Buckley came in, landed that beautiful counter off of the kick sweep where the opponent caught the kick, swept it across against Impa Kasanganay. He jumped up and did a spinning back kick to the face, knocked out Kasanganay, and then he came in and fought Jordan Wright, got a first-round KO against Jordan Wright. But, I don't think anybody was picking Alessio Di Chirico to defeat Joaquin Buckley. Buckley was a guy that the UFC had on its radar. It was promoting him. It was ready to take Buckley to the next level, and it didn't work out. Buckley's right shin had something to say about it. Alessio's right shin had something to say about it as it cracked Joaquin Buckley upside the head, knocked him out cold, and Alessio Di Chirico got the finish. And now he's coming into this fight against another knockout artist, another guy who's a big power puncher who, if he lands on your chin, can knock out just about everybody. But this is a fight at 185 pounds. Abdul was formerly a 170-pound welterweight. This is a little bit different. It's a little bit interesting. What will we see from Abdul Razak Alhassan at 185 pounds? Will the extra weight give him more cardio? Will he be able to push a pace that he wasn't able to push at 170 pounds because of the weight cut? He's a big, muscular guy for 170 pounds. There was literally no fat on that guy. And he's just a huge power puncher. He's got a background in judo, so he can use his wrestling, hip tosses, and clinch throws if he needs to. But what Abdul Razak Alhassan wants to do is get in your face, close the distance, and land a bomb on your chin and knock you out cold. And that's what he did to almost everybody in the UFC. Now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. Alessio Di Chirico was on a 3-fight losing streak, I believe, a 2 or 3-fight losing streak, before he got that knockout over Joaquin Buckley. So both of these guys have been in similar positions. A loss here for Abdul Razak Alhassan could lead to him getting cut from the UFC. I'm a big fan of Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's a guy that I always like to watch compete because if he, like I said, he's going to come to knock your head off in the first round. He's not going to come in and play on the outside and wait for you to make a mistake. Would that probably be a better option for him in his career? Yes, you probably want to stay on the outside a little bit, use a little bit of fakes and feints, and set up your punches and counter your opponent. Besides just going right for the kill, putting your opponent up against the cage and landing a left hook, a right straight, a left hook, a right straight, a right hook, a left hook, a body shot, an overhand, and just every punch you throw has 100% power on it. After that first round and a half, you're going to get tired and you're going to eventually fall into the grappling and the top control game of your opponent. And it would be very beneficial for Alessio Di Chirico to come into this fight and stay on the outside, land that inside low kick, use that outside low kick on the opponent, chop to the inside or chop to the outside of the leg, and then work on the inside as well. Work the front kicks to the body, the teeps, the knees, use your circling and your lateral movement to keep Abdul away from you. And when he steps in, use your fakes and feints. Fakes and feints were something we saw that worked very well for him in the fight against Mahmoud Muradov, who also fights on this card, and we'll get to his fight right after this one. But he lost to Mahmoud Muradov via decision, but he looked good in that fight. Like you can't sit here and tell me that Chikadze got dominated. He lost the first 2 rounds. Muradov is a very long, rangy, good boxer, good striker. He's got good kicks off that lead left leg, hiding it behind a jab, going cross, switch step into a lead left high kick. He's very, very solid and very decorated, and he's got good hands. He landed on the chin of Alessio a lot, but Alessio, as the fight kept going, he was able to keep the defenses up. He was able to land a beautiful overhand right over the jab of Mahmoud Muradov. He's got a good overhand. He's got good counters, good head movement, good control in the clinch. He didn't get overpowered in the clinch by Muradov, and I think that's going to play a big factor here going into this fight. So I think that Chikadze is going to be able to survive that first round. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a hot and heavy first round, but I think he's going to be able to keep him behind the jab, going to be able to use those feints to get Abdul to overcommit on his power punches, and then probably tie him up in a clinch and over-under position. When he breaks off, use that jab, use those fakes, right hand, left hook, fake the jab, come in with the left hook, front kicks and knees to the body as Abdul tries to crowd you up against the cage. That front kick, the teeps, and the knees to the body are going to work well against a powerhouse like Abdul Razak Alhassan. I like Abdul Razak Alhassan, but I cannot pick him here. I'm going to go with the minus 155 favorite, Alessio Chikadze, to defeat Abdul Razak Alhassan via a unanimous decision. I think it's 2-1. I think a close first round where Abdul probably gets the first round or at least does enough to have the judges give him that first round. But later on, Chikadze with the clinch control, the over-unders, the double-unders up against the cage, trying to work trip takedowns and just playing on the outside, getting Abdul to tire himself out with wide, heavy power shots, and then just picking him apart from the outside. I could see a late TKO if he continues to work the body. Chikadze has a good right body kick, a good front kick to the body, like we said, and good knees. If he works that body later on in the fight, the hands are going to come down, and he's going to be able to probably land that high kick up top. He's got a very, very solid right high kick, which is what he landed against Joaquin Buckley. But overall, I'm going with the minus 155 favorite, Alessio Chikadze, to get the victory over Abdul Razak Alhassan via a 29-28 unanimous decision. Now we move to the main card, and the first bout is in the 185-pound middleweight division. You've got a battle between Mahmoud Muradov, who comes into this fight with a record of 25 victories and 6 defeats, comes in as the minus 350 favorite, going up against the veteran of mixed martial arts, Gerald GM3 Mir Shart, comes into this fight with a record of 32 victories, 14 defeats, and comes in as a heavy, heavy underdog at plus 260. Mahmoud Muradov is a person who trains under the money team. So he's sponsored by Floyd Mayweather. So this guy's getting good work in the boxing, and you see it translate very well into mixed martial arts. Some guys will go and train with professional boxers in boxing gyms, and they'll kind of fall in love with their hands, and they'll forget about the clinch. They'll forget about their kicks. They'll forget about their knees. They'll forget about their wrestling and everything because they fell in love with the boxing. But when you look at a guy like Mahmoud Muradov, he's a guy who has good boxing, good combinations. You see him go right hook to the body, left hook to the body, right hook to the body, left hook up top, overhand right, just pop, pop, pop. He can land those good combos, and, he has knockout power. He can go long distance in fights. Of course, in the third round, he does tend to get a little bit tired. That is somewhere I think that a veteran like Gerald Mir Shart can take over if he's able to drag it out. But Muradov comes into this fight as a minus 350 favorite for a reason. And you look at his overall game. I mean, the guy's sharp. He's got good combinations, good movement. That's one of my favorite things about Muradov is he can switch stances, moving laterally. He'll switch southpaw with the right lead leg in front. He'll circle, and then he'll switch back orthodox as he circles to his left. You can never really get a read on him, and he's always moving in and out, moving laterally. He won't overcommit on his punches, but sometimes he will throw some combinations and kind of overextend himself, that could lead into the grappling game of Gerald Mir Shart. Mir Shart does not want to keep this on the feet. He's got a really, really solid left kick to the body. We've seen him land it a few times in his fights. I believe he has a couple finishes with that kick to the body as well. So that's something he's going to look for on an orthodox fighter like Muradov, is switching, moving his feet and then trying to circle him to his left or Muradov's right to then fire that left body kick. And he's definitely going to be looking to land that over and over again in this fight. And, the only way that Mir Shart wins this here is by getting Muradov to overextend on a punch, getting on his hips, using a trip takedown, using a double leg, getting to the body lock, dragging him back down, getting his hooks in, and trying to get a choke. If he's able to get into a scramble and can grab that front headlock on Mahmoud Muradov, then he's going to be left in position for a guillotine, and that is an area you don't want to be. If Mir Shart gets a hold of your neck, he can submit just about anybody. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's a very, very decorated grappler, and he's very dangerous from the top and the bottom. More than likely, though, he's more dangerous from the top position and taking your back or getting in the mount and landing some ground and pound, and then you opening yourself up for a choke, usually a rear naked choke, a guillotine from the front headlock position. But overall, I just don't see Mir Shart lasting that long in this fight. And it's not like I don't like Mir Shart. It's not like I'm not giving him the credit that he deserves. I mean, the guy's had 46 fights as a professional MMA fighter compared to, 31 fights for Muradov. So they're pretty close in terms of their records. But, I think Muradov is a way more well-rounded fighter. I think he's so much better on the outside and using that lateral movement and using his footwork to circle and dance around the cage and step in with a jab and then fire off that lead left high kick behind the jab if the opponent tries to slip to the outside. Good front kicks, good rear roundhouse kicks to the body and to the legs. Good movement. His combination punches are great. Uppercuts and left hooks, jab, left hook, uppercut, left hook, jab, overhand right, left hook, circle, good head movement. He's very defensively aware as well as offensively and defensively responsible. And that's a thing that I think is going to take him very far in this fight against Mir Shart, who, yes, he's the better grappler. He's the better jiu-jitsu artist, but it's not an easy, it's not easy to take Muradov down. If you look at his stats, I can pull them up really quick. Hold on. We'll go to the main card. Go down to Alessio. Or I'm sorry, Muradov versus Mir Shart, and we'll look. So Mir Shart actually has the 2-inch reach advantage, which could play a factor, but you don't want to play on the outside against as decorated of a kickboxer and a boxer as Mahmoud Muradov. But you look at what I mean with the grappling and then the striking advantage going the way that they do. 68% of the wins coming by way of knockout for Muradov to 75% of the wins coming by way of submission for Gerald Mir Shart. So if he stays on the feet, Muradov's going to have his way with him. And if it goes to the ground, I think Muradov is better or is good enough on the ground in terms of his shrimping, his scrambling, getting his way back up to the feet and the takedown defense to get out from underneath, but you do not want to be on the ground against Mir Shart. Here, let's look at the grappling. So takedown defense, Muradov's never been taken down. He's got 100% takedown defense. And, Mir Shart has a 46% takedown defense, but the thing that really is speaking volumes in this fight is that he only has a 43% takedown accuracy. So, yes, if he gets Muradov down to the ground, it's a problem. But Muradov is going to be hard to control. He's going to be hard to get a hold of because he has a shorter reach, but he has a good way of using his reach to stay on the outside, use the lateral movement, poke with the jab, right hand, left shot to the body, jab, left hook to the body, fake the jab, come with a left hook, 1, 2, 2, 3, uppercuts off the counter. And I just think Murad is the better mixed martial artist. I think he's the way more well-rounded fighter. I think he's long enough and he's got good enough takedown defense to stop the shots of Mir Shart. I think he keeps it on the feet, keeps it at range, picks him apart with the jab and the 1-2, constantly moving away, landed some good kicks, kind of just showing out on the feet. I think this is going to be a breakout performance from Mahmoud Muradov. You know, he's the minus 350 favorite, and I do think that's a bit excessive. I would put him at around a minus 200, a minus 210. But overall, I'm going to go with Mahmoud Muradov to get the victory here. I just think, like I said, he's the more well-rounded guy. He trains under the Mayweathers and at the money team. You know, he's got good hands, good defensive movement, and he's just going to be able to beat Mir Shart to the punch and everything. And if he does get taken down, I think he can scramble his way back up to the feet, but I don't even think Mir Shart's going to get into the range to take him down. So my pick is the minus 350 favorite, Mahmoud Muradov, to get the victory via I'm going to go with a second round knockout. I think he's got the power to catch Mir Shart on the chin. I think he catches him coming in, drops him, and gets the finish. Up next, we move to the next fight on the main card. And this is a great fight, if it's the one that I'm thinking of. Hold on. Yeah, here we go. This is my most look forward to fight on the card by a mile. It's in the welterweight division. You've got the number 11 ranked lightweight in his second fight at 170 pounds, making his return after being away for some time after that loss to Charles Do Bronx Oliveira at the last fight before the COVID pandemic, when the fights obviously got moved to the Apex and then there were no fights for around a month. You've got the number 11 ranked lightweight Kevin the Motown Phenom Lee coming into this fight with a record of 18 victories and 6 defeats, coming in as a minus 130 favorite, going up against the plus 110 underdog in Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez, who comes into this fight with a phenomenal mixed martial arts record of 15 victories and 2 defeats. I mean, this is a great fight, and D-Rod is ranked number 11 at welterweight. So you've got the number 11 ranked lightweight in Kevin the Motown Phenom Lee. I think that's wrong, though. Like, I think he's ranked. I don't think he's actually in the rankings at 155 pounds right now. He could be, but I feel like they took him out, and D-Rod is currently the number 11 ranked welterweight. So this is Kevin Lee's second fight at 170 pounds. His first one didn't go his way. He looked good early on against the former lightweight champion and welterweight contender in Rafael Dos Anjos, but the longer the fight played out, his cardio just wasn't there, and he shot a lazy takedown, and RDA was able to sprawl, get in the top position, and work the arm triangle and get the tap. I believe that was in the third round. In his last fight, though, against Charles Oliveira, man, he showed some very, very good defense on the ground, good submission defense, good ability to get top position against Charles Oliveira, scramble out of leg locks and triangles and, you know, find a way out and control on the top position. And on the feet, he did very well. I mean, he was getting caught circling against the cage with that left hook from Charles Oliveira. He was getting caught with some jumping, flying front kicks early on in the round, or when Kevin Lee would get close to the cage, he would get caught with some good shots. But honestly, this fight is probably the most difficult fight to call on the entire card. I think this is the hardest fight to make a pick on out of every fight on this card. And, you know, Rodriguez is a great fighter. He trains under Joe Schilling, Joe Stitch 'em Up Schilling, a former kickboxing world champion, a seriously decorated kickboxer. And you can see just with his accuracy and his boxing combinations and his ability to strike from all different ranges and always tend to land his punches and, you know, throw light pity pat to set up that beautiful right hook, set up the straight left, set up the right hook to the body, use that left body kick from the southpaw position. He's very good and very accurate as a striker. And if you go into the stats for this fight, I think the stats will tell you a pretty good story. So Kevin Lee comes into this fight 5'10", and D-Rod Rodriguez is going to have a 3-inch height advantage at 6'1", so 5'10" versus 6'1". Kevin Lee has a 3-inch reach advantage moving up to 170 against D-Rod Rodriguez with a 77-inch reach compared to a 74-inch for Daniel Rodriguez. Leg reach is a 2-inch leg reach advantage for D-Rod, but I don't expect him to really use his kicks. If anybody's going to use their kicks in this fight, it's going to be Kevin Lee. Let's go into the win percentages. You've got 17% of the wins coming by way of knockout, 53% by KO for D-Rod. So 17% of wins coming by way of KO for Lee, 53% for D-Rod, 44% coming by way of submission for Kevin Lee, to 27% for Rodriguez. 39% of wins coming by way of decision for Kevin Lee, to 20% coming by way of decision for D-Rod Rodriguez. Average fight time, I don't really think that plays a factor here. I think they both can go 3 rounds. It's just who's going to be able to push the pace longer. And I think I have an idea. When you look at significant strikes, a big difference for D-Rod. 3.9 significant strikes landed per minute for Kevin Lee compared to 8.07 for Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. That's almost a 5 strike advantage per minute landed for D-Rod Rodriguez. He is a pressure fighter. He lands more combinations. He lands more on the feet. Kevin Lee's a little bit more technical, and, he does throw some wild shots sometimes, and he can, fall off the game plan, but he is a lot less active with those strikes landed per minute. Not only is D-Rod more active, but he's also more accurate with his significant strikes. You've got a 42% significant strike accuracy rate for Kevin Lee to a 48% significant strike accuracy rate for Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. When you look at strikes absorbed per minute, D-Rod does leave his chin out there a little bit more than Kevin Lee. 3.23 strikes absorbed per minute for Lee compared to 5.71 for Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez. So they both like to get into the firefights, but Lee is a little bit better on the here he takes less strikes per minute. But when you look at the defense, according to the defensive numbers, Daniel Rodriguez is better than Kevin Lee. He's got a 56% striking defense compared to a 51 for Kevin Lee. So pretty close, but a little bit of an edge there in terms of defense on the feet for the kickboxer/boxer in Daniel Rodriguez. When you look at the grappling, this is all going to be Kevin Lee. Honestly, the stats tell you a little bit of a different story, but it's all Kevin Lee when it comes to the grappling. I feel. Not that D-Rod can't grapple, he can, but he definitely doesn't want to be taken down or be on his back against a decorated grappler and wrestler like Kevin Lee. 3.21 takedowns per 15 minutes for Lee compared to 1 for D-Rod Rodriguez. 43% takedown accuracy for Kevin Lee compared to 55% takedown accuracy for D-Rod, but he's not one to look for takedowns. He likes to keep it on the feet, get in your face, and try to knock you out. 75% takedown defense for Kevin Lee compared to an 83% takedown defense for D-Rod Rodriguez. But I do think that Kevin is going to test that wrestling and test that defensive grappling and wrestling a lot in this contest. Submission averages 0.82 for Kevin Lee compared to 0.2 for D-Rod. Now, overall, I think a lot of people are going to be siding with D-Rod Rodriguez because he's been more active, because he is a natural 170er. He does have a lot of power in his strikes, and he's a pressure fighter. And one thing that Kevin Lee has had trouble with is guys who can push him back, not wilt to his pace and pressure, control the pace of the fight, and push Kevin Lee back, get him to grapple when he doesn't want to, make him tired, and then make him quit. That's what people want to do against Kevin Lee, and you've seen it work. It worked against Rafael Dos Anjos. It kind of happened against Charles Oliveira in a fight that he looked very good in the first round, but the longer the fight went, he just shot an ill-advised takedown, got caught in a guillotine, and got submitted. And even though he looked good in the fight, the longer it goes, it's going to play into the hands of D-Rod Rodriguez, because how is Kevin Lee's cardio going to be at 170? He said that he's ready to fight at 170 now. He wasn't ready before, that he's in a much better place and better shape now than he was when he originally tried to go up to 170 against RDA. And I think this is going to be a big test, and it's going to show us a lot of where Kevin Lee is at currently in his career. He made the move from Robert Fallis over to TriStar with Firas Zahabi, one of the best MMA coaches in the world. And his first fight after going over with Firas Zahabi was that head kick KO at UFC 244 at Madison Square Garden over Gregor Gillespie, who was undefeated at the time. Now, Gillespie came back and obviously got a win over Diego Ferreira, so he's not a washed fighter, and that was a big win for Kevin Lee. And after that is when he got the fight against Charles Oliveira, who is currently the undisputed lightweight champion of the world. So his last loss came at the hands of the current 155-pound lightweight champion. And I think that's something you can't overlook here. I think that Rodriguez does have the advantage in terms of the accuracy with his striking. But I think the cleaner, more technical striker and the cleaner person on the feet is Kevin Lee. I think he's more active with his kicking game. It's going to be southpaw versus orthodox. Lee's going to be fighting out of orthodox, which is left lead, foot in front. Power coming from the right hand, the right foot and back. And D-Rod is a southpaw. He's going to fight with that right foot in front, left foot in back. Power coming from the rear left hand, a really, really solid check right hook. D-Rod likes to set up a lot of his stuff after pawing at the jab of the orthodox opponent. Look for D-Rod to immediately circle towards his right and try to get that outside foot against Kevin Lee. Whoever can control the outside foot on the feet is going to be able to dictate the pace in terms of the striking, because if Kevin Lee can't control that outside foot, he's not going to be able to set up his punches. He's not going to be able to set up his straight punches into his high kicks. He's not going to be able to set up a lot of his high kicks and kicks to the body, which is an area where I think he takes a big, big advantage over D-Rod on the feet. Rodriguez, like we said, is a pressure fighter. He's not going to back down. He likes to get in your face. He likes to rough you up. Training under Joe Stitch him up Schilling, he's got heavy striking. He's got good defense. He's good offensively and defensively. It's a very, very tough fight for Kevin Lee. I'm actually kind of surprised that Lee would take this fight, but Kevin Lee has had a murderer's row in his career. I mean, Ali Quinta, Edson Barboza, Tony Ferguson, Rafael Dos Anjos, Gregor Gillespie, Charles Do Bronx Oliveira. I mean, the guys fought some of the best in the UFC's lightweight and welterweight divisions. And overall, I think that if it stays on the feet and goes into the second, if it goes past the midway point of the second round and into the third, and it stays on the feet, I think Rodriguez is going to be able to take over, get in the face of Kevin Lee, and land some vicious shots, and eventually land that check right hook over the jab of Kevin Lee and land the straight left. And if he's able to land those shots at will, he's going to knock out Kevin Lee. But I cannot seem to overlook the grappling, the top control, and the submission game, and the wrestling of Kevin Lee. I think that the wrestling and the takedowns and the top control and the jiu-jitsu game of Kevin Lee is world class. And I think that the wrestling and jiu-jitsu is going to take over in this fight against D-Rod. I think he's going to be able to get Rodriguez down to the ground. And I think once he gets in that top position, he's going to be able to land some good punches from the ground and pound. I think he's going to be able to get D-Rod to give up his back. And I think in the second round, early on, Lee gets that takedown up against the cage, shoots from a little bit out in front, throws the 1-2 behind it, shoots the double, takes him down. D-Rod goes to scramble back up to his feet. Kevin Lee jumps on the back, sinks the hooks in, and gets the rear naked choke. I'm going to go with Kevin the Motown Phenom Lee to defeat the number 11 ranked welterweight and Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez via a second round rear naked choke. And I'm actually a little bit surprised considering that Kevin Lee is the favorite. I thought a lot of people would be able to get him at plus money, but he's currently sitting as the minus 130 favorite over D-Rod Rodriguez, who's a plus 110. I don't mind those numbers. I think they're pretty good. I think those are decent numbers, and it does tell a story of the fight, but I did expect Lee to be a little bit of an underdog just because of how his recent fights have gone and how much Rodriguez has been on the up and up, and some people believe he should be 17-0 in his professional MMA career. But I'm going with Kevin the Motown Phenom Lee to defeat Daniel D-Rod Rodriguez via a second round rear naked choke. Up next, we've got a battle for the first winner of this season of The Ultimate Fighter, and that is going to be in the bantamweight 135-pound division. You've got a battle between former Contender Series competitor and probably the most entertaining guy of the season in Ricky Hadouken Tercios, coming into this fight with a record of 10 victories and 2 defeats. Comes into this fight as the minus 170 favorite over Brady Bam Bam Highstand, who comes into this fight with a record of 5 victories and 1 defeat, coming back at the plus 130 underdog. This is a great fight, and honestly, I expected it to be Vince Murdoch going up against Ricky Tercios. I thought it was going to be Tercios versus Murdoch in the finale, but obviously Brady Highstand, he was able to just get in the face of Vince Murdoch, take him down, and once this guy gets you to the ground and gets you in that top position, if he can get the top control from the half guard, if he can control you from the side control, put the knee across the belly, or the shin across the belly, and land vicious ground and pound and just give you no space on the ground, eventually forcing you to give up a position you don't want to, land that vicious ground and pound and either get a TKO or grab a hold of your neck and get a submission. I mean, this high stand, Brady high stand, they call him Bam Bam, but this guy is a great grappler. He's a good wrestler. He's always pushing forward to get the takedown. I mean, it's kind of a lesser man's version of a Khabib, a lesser man's version of a Gregor Gillespie. He throws a couple punches, a 1-2, sets it up, and then gets you up against the cage and goes to get you in a clinch, goes to get you in the tie plum, the over-unders, the double-unders, and work his takedown game and control you. And once he gets on top of you, man, this guy is dangerous. He's a serious, serious competitor. And it's definitely something that Ricky Turcios is going to have to look out for. I mean, they call this guy Hadouken, Ricky Hadouken Turcios. He's definitely a guy who's out there. He's not he's not the most. I'm not going to say that not the most articulate because that sounds more like an insult, but he's a wild man. That's the easiest way I can explain it. Turcios is a wild man. He constantly switches stances. He'll feint the flying knee to step down into southpaw, and then he'll use a left high kick, step back into orthodox with a 1-2, then throw a right high kick behind it, a jab, a 1-2, a 1-2-3. Fake the knee, right high kick, step down into southpaw, right, left straight, right hook, left high kick, step down, front kick. Push forward with 1, 2, 3, 4 punch combinations, and just really doesn't give you any time to breathe. My best way to describe Turcios is a pressure fighter who gives you no space, but he's also technical in the shots that he throws. Now, the problem is he has been taken down. You saw him get taken down in the fight against Dan Argueta, who actually comes from my neck of the woods out here in Illinois, and that's a guy I was definitely rooting for in Danny Argueta. He did get taken down, but even when he got taken down, one of the times he got taken down sprawled and was able to shoot his hips forward and almost lock up a triangle choke. Like he sprawled, he took that rear leg, shot it through, got the triangle positioning, trapped the head in the arm, and almost got the submission. But obviously, Danny Argueta was able to get out of it, and it was a heavy pace fight. But pushing the pace against a high level wrestler like Argueta, and being able to control that pace and win that third round and stop the takedowns and move forward on his own and get some takedowns of his own and work from the top position. I mean, this guy doesn't get tired. He seems to be able to push a heavy pace for all 3 rounds, and I expect the same from Brady Bam Bam high stand. He can definitely push the pace. He can move forward and get in your face and not stop and try to get you out of there. And Ricky Turcios, I believe his last fight was against, I can't think of the guy's name. It was like Shaolin. Let me see. Hold on. Here we go. Team Volkanovski versus Team Ortega. Do you have the fights? So he defeated, this was it, Ludwig Sholinian. Yeah, Ludwig Sholinian. They had a great fight, back and forth on the feet, but Turcios was just able to beat him to the punch pretty much on everything. I mean, it was a high-paced fight. Eventually, he got the takedown against Ricky Turcios, and did some good work, but Turcios just shrimped his hips, got his whizzer, and got back up to the feet. And right when he gets back up to the feet, he's back in your face. I mean, he gets up from the takedown, 1-2, 1-2, 2-3, 1-2 high kick, 1-2 switch high kick. I mean, he's just able to push forward and get that pace going that a lot of people can't keep up with, and he can keep it up for 3 rounds. I mean, you don't really see this guy get tired. Now, Brady high stand, on the other hand, if he's able to get that takedown early on and control that distance and control where the fight takes place, which he wants to be on the mat, this fight could be dominant. It could be dominant in either direction. Either high stand gets his takedowns and works that really, really solid top game in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and it controls the fight and gets a 30-27, or possibly gets a TKO from the top or locks up a submission, or Turcios stuffs the takedowns, keeps it on the feet, and batters him on the feet and lands his kicks, switch stance, fake the spinning back kick, 1-2, 1-2-3, elbows up against the cage. One thing is that I think will take Turcios very far in this fight is if you listen to the corner advice, in between rounds. I mean, this guy loves the fight game. I don't think there's anybody on the UFC roster who embraces that much like out there wild man, fighter spirit, street fighter and Tekken style of, personality and fighting than Ricky Turcios. And he's very much in love with martial arts. And I think that love for martial arts is going to carry him far. I think that his ability to listen to his corner in between rounds and ask questions and take that into consideration for the following round is going to carry him to a victory here. So it's a close fight. I wouldn't bet either way if I were you, but I'm going with Ricky Hadouken Turcios to become the winner of the 135-pound bantamweight tough finale. So the 135-pound Ultimate Fighter at the end of the night will be Ricky Hadouken Turcios. I believe he defeats Brady Bam Bam Highstand via a 29-28 unanimous decision. I don't see a finish. If there's a finish, I think that goes to the way of Highstand. I think if there's a finish, it's going to be Highstand getting in the top position, either getting a submission or landing brutal ground and pound when just Turcios can't keep up with the pace. But I think it goes to decision. I think Turcios keeps it on the feet, probably gets taken down once or twice, but can, shrimp his hips and work that whizzer and circle his back off the cage and win that 29-28 unanimous decision over Brady Bam Bam Highstand. And then for the co-main event, you've got the middleweight final for the tough finale in a battle between Brian Pooh Bear Battle, who comes into this fight with a record of 5 victories and 1 defeat and comes in as the minus 182 favorite, going up against Gilbert Urbina, 6-1 overall as a professional mixed martial artist and a plus 138 underdog. Now, as we already stated, it should not have been Urbina in this fight. It should have been Brian Battle versus Tresean Gore. Gore knocked out Urbina in the fight to get to the finale. He caught him. He was catching him coming in with a jab. He would counter him with a left hook, counter him with a right hand, and eventually he got him up against the cage. Boom, boom, step back, boom, check left hook, dropped him, and that was it. When he landed on his chin, that was the end of the night. And I honestly wish we would have gotten Brian Battle versus Tresean Gore because I think that would be a much more competitive fight. Not to say I don't think that Urbina is going to be a competitive matchup for Battle. I do. I think both of these guys, it's going to be competitive. It's going to be a tough fight to call. But, Brian Battle got that call and, he was, I believe, the final seed and the last person picked. And he defeated the number 1 seed who also fights on this card in Andre Petrovsky. I think it's Petrovsky. And, he beat him, he just outpaced him, outpressured him, landed good punches on the feet, got up and caught up in a scramble, landed that palm-to-palm guillotine, boom, locked it up almost like a Darce or an Anaconda, boom, turned the corner, got on the top position, and got the submission over a guy who was known as the grappler and the submission artist. So even though Brian Battle is considered to be, not as well-rounded on the feet or on the ground, maybe just kind of not great in any one area, he showed that he's one of the best guys in that house by defeating, like we said, the guy who was Ortega's number 1 pick in Andre Petrovsky. So I think this is a lot closer than people think. I think that people are going to see Gilbert Urbina and, look at his record and see he did fight Sean Brady, who's undefeated in MMA. Yes, he came up on a loss, but he seems to have the more experience and the better competition between the two when it comes to their overall mixed martial arts careers. Like we said, both these guys are early on in their careers, 6 fights for Battle and 7 fights for Urbina. But I think that just seeing how when Urbina got hit with power shots, he was getting dropped. I know Tresean Gore hits like a Mack truck, he probably hits harder than anybody in that house, but whenever he would land on the chin, he seemed to hurt Urbina. And Urbina coming into this fight after his last fight being a KO, I know it's been a long time. He's had time to recover, but I got to go with Battle. I just think that his pressure, his combinations, his counter-striking, I think that Urbina had a lot of trouble with the counter-striking of Tresean Gore, kind of stepping into range with his hands down. I think that Battle's going to be able to land that right hook, the straight left, the left kicks to the body, the left high kicks. He's not going to want to play around on the ground or in the grappling, but he does have good defensive wrestling, good ability to scramble, limp leg his way out of single leg takedown attempts. get his hips up and work in the grappling positions to the point where I don't think it's going to be easy for Urbina to get those takedowns and work his jiu-jitsu or ground and pound from the top. So, I mean, I think Bryan Battle wins this one. I think that his striking, his range, his distance, he was also formerly, a heavyweight when he first competed in mixed martial arts, and he made all the way drop down to 185 pounds, or he made the drop all the way down to 185, I should say. And, he's going to carry that power. He's going to lose some of it, obviously, when you cut down from a heavyweight to, a middleweight, but he's going to have that power in that frame, kind of like a Jared Cannonier. And I think that his wildness, his counter striking, his movement, and just his overall game is a little bit better than Urbina. And I think that the chin is going to get tested, and I don't think the chin of Urbina is going to hold up. So I'm going to go with the minus 182 favorite, Bryan Pooh Bear Battle, to defeat Gilbert Urbina via a second round knockout and become the winner of the 185-pound Ultimate Fighter. So the 185-pound Ultimate Fighter champion. This is a close fight, and it's definitely going to be a good one. So keep your eye on that. But like I said, I'm going with Battle over Urbina to get the win via second round KO. Now we move to the main event of the evening, a striker's delight in the 145-pound featherweight division. You've got the number 9 ranked Edson Jr. Barboza coming into this fight with a record of 22 victories and 9 defeats, and I believe a 3-1 record overall as a 145-pound mixed martial artist. Coming in as the minus 105 underdog, it's like even money. It's basically a pick 'em. Going up against the number 10 ranked Giga, the Ninja Chikadze, comes into this fight with a record of 13 victories and 2 defeats, coming back at the minus 125 favorite. So slight underdog for Barboza, but it's basically a pick 'em, minus 105 to minus 125 for Chikadze. We won't break down the stats yet, but just going overall, I mean, this is going to be one of the highest level striking matches you'll ever see in the UFC. I mean, both of these guys are decorated kickboxers, a decorated, extensive kickboxing background for both. If I can pull up Chikadze's kickboxing record. Here we go. And let me see. Here we go. So it should let me pull it up. Just give me 1 second. Kickboxing record. This says incomplete, but overall in kickboxing, Giga Chikadze's 38 wins and 6 defeats. His last kickboxing fight coming in December of 2017, he lost to Dylan Salvador via decision, unanimous decision. And then if you look at Edson Barboza's kickboxing record, here we go. His kickboxing record is 25 wins and 3 losses. 22 of those 25 kickboxing wins coming by way of KO. So both guys extensive credentials and experience in kickboxing before they made the transition to professional mixed martial arts. 38 wins and 6 losses for Chikadze, 25 wins and 3 losses for Barboza. So a little bit more experience on the side of Chikadze, coming in with 44 fights compared to 28 fights for Barboza. But in mixed martial arts, Barboza has the advantage with 22 victories in MMA and 9 losses compared to 13-2 for Chikadze. So Chikadze a little bit more experienced in the kickboxing world, Barboza more experienced at high-level competition in the mixed martial arts game. Let's break down some of the stats before we get into the technical analysis of this fight. So overall, when it comes down to the stats for this main event, here's how it plays out. Actually, here, I'm going to look here because the UFC site didn't have them up correctly. So 5'11" for the height of Edson Barboza to 6 feet for Chikadze. So he's got a 1-inch height advantage. A 1-inch reach advantage, though, on the side of the number 9 ranked Edson Jr. Barboza, coming in with a 75-inch reach compared to a 74-inch reach for Chikadze. Leg reach 41 inches for Barboza to 40.5 for Giga Chikadze. That half an inch isn't really going to make a huge difference in terms of the stand-up game. Win percentages, here we go. Wins coming by way of knockout, 59% for Edson Barboza to 62% for Giga Chikadze. 5% of wins coming by way of submission for Barboza, 8% for Chikadze. 36% of wins coming by way of decision for Barboza compared to 31 for Giga Chikadze. But both of these guys are finishers. Both of these guys are strikers. And almost, almost 60% of Barboza's wins and over 60% of Chikadze's wins come by way of knockout. So both of these guys are going to be standing and banging. I could see the wrestling and grappling going to the side of one fighter because he's used it a little bit more recently in his career. But it's definitely going to be a striking battle. It's going to be a kickboxing match on the feet inside of an MMA cage. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.01 for Edson Barboza to 3.55 for Chikadze. So Barboza is just a little bit more accurate in terms of the shots that he throws, and a little bit more active, I should say, not accurate. And Chikadze likes to pick his shots and move around and measure a little bit more than Junior. Significant strike percentages, 42% of significant strikes landed for Barboza compared to 44% for Giga Chikadze. So Chikadze's a little bit more accurate, but Barboza's more active, if that makes sense. Significant strike defense, they're neck and neck, 60%. It's virtually identical significant strike defense for both. So yes, they do get hit, but they're able to land their shots and be defensive and get away from the shots of their opponents. So they're offensively and defensively responsible. Very, very close matchup in terms of the stats. When it comes to the grappling, takedown average per 15-minute fight, 0.46 for Barboza to 0.38 for Chikadze. Takedown accuracy is on the side of Barboza with a 46% takedown accuracy compared to a 33% takedown accuracy rate for Chikadze. Takedown defense overall, 80% for Edson Jr. Barboza to 68% for the number 10 ranked Giga Chikadze. Barboza has faced some of the most decorated wrestlers at 155 and 145 pounds, more 155 than 45 because he is new to this 145-pound featherweight weight class. But Chikadze, I believe, if Barboza does implement his grappling, he can take over by using the clinches up against the cage and trip takedowns and just trying to wrestle Chikadze if the fight does fall out of his hands on the feet. So if somebody's going to use their grappling and their wrestling, look for it to be Edson Jr. Barboza. Now, both of these guys primarily fight out of that orthodox stance, but whenever they throw kicks, Barboza likes to stay in orthodox. He doesn't switch southpaw very often. Sometimes when he circles or angles, you'll see him switch stance from orthodox to southpaw or vice versa, but mainly it's always staying in that orthodox stance, which is the power in the right hand, the left foot in front. Chikadze's a little bit more free-flowing with his stances. He's what I would like to call a switch stance fighter, but there's a little bit different. He's a little bit different in the way he sets things up. So a lot of the times when Chikadze throws kicks to the body or to the head, they come from that southpaw side. He's got the world-famous Giga kick. He landed it on Jamie Simmons to the head, and he landed it on Cub Swanson in his last fight to the body. And the first time it landed to the body, Swanson went down. It hit him right on the liver. Orthodox versus southpaw, he switched southpaw, landed that left kick to the body, came on like an upward trajectory, landed on the liver of Swanson. Swanson grunted, fell over, and that was it. He jumped on him and got the finish. So if he lands this left kick to the body against Barboza, this Giga kick is going to be a big weapon for Chikadze in this main event. Barboza, like I said, or let's go back to Giga. So southpaw, usually left kick to the body, left kick to the head. When he's looking for kicks to the legs, he likes to do that out of orthodox and usually set it up behind a jab. He'll go jab, outside low kick, switch southpaw, boom, either left kick to the body or a left kick to the head. He did it against Jamie Simmons where he landed a left kick to the body, the power kick, and then he went right back to the well, not even behind a feint, and went with a left kick to the head and landed and dropped Jamie Simmons and got the knockout. But when it comes to overall mixed martial arts competition, Barboza's fought the who's who. He's fought with a way better competition in his mixed martial arts career than Giga Chikadze. You look at their recent fights. I can pull it up for you right here. Barboza's obviously coming off that third-round knockout over Shane Burgos where he timed the jab, slipped the jab of Burgos, and came over the top with an overhand right. Burgos kind of backed up and looked to absorb the shot, but he wasn't able to, and he fell over, and Barboza landed one more shot, but Burgos was going out anyway. But the speed of Edson Barboza really has showcased itself in his drop down to 145 pounds. But let's just look at Edson Barboza's career, and I can tell you just how good this guy is, and the murderer's row that he's faced. So he's faced Tony Ferguson, he faced Paul Felder, Michael Johnson, Gilbert Melendez, Anthony Pettis, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Beneil Dariush, Dan Hooker, Kevin Lee, Paul Felder again, Justin Gaethje, Makwan Amirkhani, Dan Ige in a fight that I believe he won, but the decision went to Dan Ige. Very close fight, though. And then he just got the knockout victory over Shane Burgos in the third round, and now he's going up against Giga Chikadze. Now, if you look at Chikadze's last fight or his career in the UFC, give me 1 second and I'll pull it up for you. In the UFC overall, he has a win over Brandon Davis via decision. He's got a knockout over Jamie Simmons in the first round. He's got a decision victory over Omar Morales, which is one of his better victories. That was a great performance from Giga. And then he's got a decision victory over Erwin Rivera. And then in 2021, he's got a knockout victory over Cub Swanson. So Swanson and Omar Morales are probably the highest level of competition that Chikadze's fought in the mixed martial arts game, or in the UFC. And Barboza's just fought everybody. I mean, like we said, Dan Hooker, Kevin Lee, Paul Felder twice, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Tony Ferguson, Beneil Dariush, Makwan Amirkhani, Shane Burgos, Dan Ige. I mean, you name them, Anthony Pettis, Gilbert Melendez, you name them, Edson Barboza has faced them, and he's beaten a lot of them. Barboza, when he dropped to 45, a lot of people believed that his cardio was going to be shot and that he would just be able to get out-pressured, out-paced, and out-grinded. And that has not been the case. He got a little bit out-pressured and out-paced by Dan Ige in that third round in his first fight at 145. But, prior to that, he dropped Ige twice. I mean, he caught him one time with an elbow and then came over the top with an overhand and dropped him. And then another time he landed a switch left kick to the body and then landed another shot up top and dropped him. And Dan Ige got hurt a lot in that fight, and I'm surprised, but Ige was able to stick through it and get the decision. But a lot of people believe that Barboza won that fight and should have been given that decision. And if that was the case, then he would currently be 3-0 at 145 with wins against Ige, Amirkhani, and Burgos. And, this 145-pound division, it looks like Barboza can keep up his pace, keep up his cardio. He does get a little bit tired as the fight goes on. So if it does go to round 3, round 4, and round 5, I would expect Chikadze to probably try to put the pressure on Barboza a little bit more and try to tire him out, land that Giga kick to the body, land the outside low kicks from the orthodox stance, land the combinations on the feet and drag it out. But the first 3 rounds, man, it's anybody's game. I mean, anybody can land and get knocked out. Here's the problem, though. I think that Barboza is quicker in terms of the boxing and the boxing combinations. I think his ability to slip and counter, his ability to come over the top of the jab, his ability to land the 1-2-3 hook to the body, hook up top and a low kick, his ability to start punches or combinations with punches and follow up with kicks is a lot quicker than Giga Chikadze. Chikadze has a really good straight left. He's got a good right hook. You'll see him go straight left, right hook, circle off the cage. He's got really good lateral movement. Barboza also has very good movement himself. You'll see him move around kind of light on the feet. But Barboza has a little bit more of a plodding, single stance style than Chikadze. Chikadze will constantly switch orthodox to southpaw, land a left body kick, step down into orthodox, land a right high kick, step down into southpaw. But the best and most dangerous weapon that Chikadze has is that left body kick or that left high kick. And that's something that Barboza is going to have to be weary of, because if you're not weary about this left body kick and this left high kick, it can knock you out. I think if it lands on anybody's chin or lands to the body and lands on your liver, it can hurt just about anybody. Barboza has gotten caught with body shots. You saw Burgos land a lot with that left hook to the body and the left hook up top. He would chain the combos together, but Barboza would come right back. 1-2-3, low kick, 1 hook, hook to the body, hook up top, roll underneath, boom, 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 boom. Barboza is very good. And another thing that Barboza does very well is use that darting right hand where he doesn't really throw anything in front of it. He'll kind of lean forward a little bit, lean over his lead leg to give you that illusion that he's closer than he actually is. And then he'll dart in with that right hand, boom. And then he can angle off and step into southpaw to get off on an angle and then go back to orthodox. So he'll boom, 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 step in, right hand, switch stance real quick, and then circle back to the center. He dropped Amir Khani with it twice. It's his speed, it's his accuracy, it's his technique. Both of these guys are technical strikers, but I think that Barboza is a little bit cleaner in terms of his boxing technique. And I think when Giga Chikadze throws punches to set up his kicks, he does kind of overextend sometimes and can leave himself open for takedowns, which is something I think Barboza can use. And it can also leave him open for counter shots. You saw him get countered over the jab with the overhand right in the fight against, who was it? Hold on. In the fight against Omar Morales, was it? Yeah, in the fight against Omar Morales, Morales was able to land over the top of the jab of Chikadze a few times, and Barboza's so good with that slip inside overhand right like he landed on Shane Burgos. It's so quick, it's so clean, it's so technical, and he has so much power that I think that's going to be a weapon for him to use against Giga. I would recommend that he chop those low kicks in on Giga. He's got some of the most nasty low kicks that anybody has in all of kickboxing and all of mixed martial arts and all of the striking games. Barboza has some of the most nasty low kicks and body shots that anybody can take. So I think when Giga goes orthodox, just chop that outside low kick on Giga. Just left hook, 1, 2, 3, left hook to the body, right low kick, 1, 2, 3, right low kick, jab, fake the hook, right low kick. Just constantly try to chop those low kicks and get Giga to not change his stances because he wants to, but change his stance because he has no other choice. And Barboza with the calf kicks now being a big thing in MMA, he's one of the best kickers in all of mixed martial arts. If he starts going to that calf with those low kicks, I mean, he might only need 2 or 3 to completely deaden your lead leg. And I honestly think that this is a close fight. I think that Barboza should use some of his wrestling if the fight goes longer. Try to tie Giga up in the over-under position. Keep him up against the cage. Use some takedowns. Try to get Giga a little bit hesitant to throw kicks and punches on the feet and get those takedowns and control him from the top position. I think we're going to see Barboza use a little bit of his wrestling when we go into that second and that third round. But overall, I think that Giga can land some good shots. And if he lands a few of those left body kicks on Barboza, I think it's definitely going to be a problem for him. And he has to look out for that left kick to the body and the left kick up top. And just the way Giga switches stances and uses his lateral movement and cuts the opponent off to set up those kicks from both stances, it's something he definitely has to watch out for. But I think that Barboza's got this, man. I think Barboza's speed and his overall technique with the boxing is going to be a big difference in this fight. I think Giga's a good striker. He does have power. He does have speed, and he is a very technical guy. But I think Barboza's speed is way faster when it comes to the punching. I think Giga might be a little bit faster with that left kick to the body, but low kicks and stuff like that, I think Barboza has the speed advantage. I think we're going to see Barboza be able to slip a lot of the jabs of Giga and come over the top with the right hand. I think we're going to see Barboza be able to land, 2, 3, 4 punch combos and punctuate it with a kick to the legs. And I think those low kicks and the boxing combinations are going to carry Edson Barboza to a finish here. I think Edson Barboza gets the victory over Giga Chikadze via I'm going to go with a third round or a second round. No, I'm going to go third round again. I think that after it hits the third round, it might lean a little bit towards Giga, but the third round, I think he's going to be able to land those boxing combinations. I think he's going to catch Giga over a jab, land the overhand right, land a combination, and get the knockout. So I'm going to go with Edson Jr. Barboza to defeat the number 10 ranked Giga the Ninja Chikadze via a third round knockout. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today for my UFC Vegas 35 preview, predictions, and analysis. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and obviously thank you guys for all your support. Anybody who tunes into the podcast on YouTube, anybody who tunes into it on any podcasting platform that it's available on, I should say, These include Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Stitcher, and many, many more. Like I said, it's also available on YouTube. These predictions will be up on YouTube tonight before the fights take place tomorrow evening. And I obviously have predictions for the fights which take place tonight, which is PFL 9. Brendan Loughnane versus the undefeated Movlid Haybulayev is the main event. And then in the co-main event, you've got Chris Wade versus one of the favorites for this tournament in Bubba Badman Jenkins. And then two great matchups at light heavyweight with Cesar Ferreira versus Martin Hamlet and Emiliano Sordi versus Antonio Carlos Jr. So definitely check those out if you haven't. And I was on the pre-fight press conference for PFL 9. If you can find that press conference and go to around the 40 to 41 minute mark, you can listen to me ask some questions to Brendan Loughnane, Chris Wade, and Bubba Jenkins. But thank you guys again for all your support. And, like this podcast, subscribe to my YouTube. The YouTube is just Touch 'em Up Podcast. Subscribe to me. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. Leave me a review for this podcast anywhere that you can. If you know anybody who's a fan of mixed martial arts, professional wrestling, fight breakdowns, fighter interviews, coach interviews, get this podcast out to anybody you can. Your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa, your aunt, your uncle, your niece, your nephew, your best friend, your best friend's friend. Get it out to anybody you can and tell them to tune in to the Touch 'em Up podcast. I'm your host, Double M. This has been my predictions for UFC Vegas 35, and I'm out. Have a good night, everybody. All right.